Hello my dear viewers, today I'm going to discuss with you all about the steps of developing a research proposal that is mainly used in humanities and social sciences research. So the steps that I'm going to discuss might be different from that is used in disciplines like science and engineering. So after knowing the steps of a research proposal, you will be able to use that proposal during your PhD admission and also for your master degree dissertation. So without wasting more time, let us now see what research proposal means in a nutshell. So research proposal act as a blueprint that conveys the entire plan of research, indicating the entire strategies of research work that the researcher proposes to carry out during his or her research tenure. Therefore, the research proposal will include the entire plan of action as of what topic you are going to research and which population you are going to research on, and also the methods and strategies that you are going to use while collecting your research as well as while analyzing the research in order to yield a unique findings. So your research proposal will provide a face validity to the proposed research work that you want to carry out. And the quality of your research proposal will heavily influence the acceptance and rejection of your proposed research study. So you have to frame your research proposal very carefully by including all the variables and all the methods and techniques and the population that you are going to research. And it should be very convincing to the research community or the funding body. Now moving on to the next. So your research proposal will mainly consist of three parts. That is the preliminary section, the main body and the referencing section. So now let us see what are the contents that are included within these three sections. So these are the contents. So within the preliminary section, it will include the cover page of your research with the title of the research and the contents of the entire research proposal and also the abbreviation that you are going to use in your research. And within the main body, it will include the introduction of the study, the literature review, and the need and justification of the study, the scope of the study, the delimitation of the study, the research questions and the research objectives and hypotheses, and also the operational definitions of the term that you are going to use in your research. And next, the research methodology and the significance of the research, and also the motivation towards the study. And within the referencing section, it will include the references and the appendix. So now let us discuss them one by one. So in order for the convenience of the viewers and to reduce the content of the video, I have divided the entire research proposal video into three parts. So it will consist of three videos. So in part one of my video, I will discuss about all these topics that has been highlighted in blue color. That means the entire preliminary section and the introduction and literature review or the main body. And in the second part of the video, I will discuss the contents that has been highlighted in purple color. That means starting from point 3 of the main body till the point 8, that is the hypothesis of the main body. And in the third part, that is the last part of the video, I will discuss about the contents that has been highlighted in black color. That means all the remaining contents after point number 9. That will also include the section C, that is the referencing section. So the first section is the preliminary sections, and it will include the cover page, including your research title. So I will give one example of how you can prepare your cover page. So this is one example. So here the research title is written in the top, and after that, in case if you are applying for PhD admission, then you can write a tentative research proposal for Doctor of Philosophy. So here you have to write the department or the discipline that you are applying for. So in case of master degree dissertation, you can just write a research proposal for the name of the course, and after that submitted to the address of the department and the university, and after that submitted by, that is your full name, and also mention the date in the form of date, month and year. So this is one format of how you can write your cover page. So the next is your research title should not be too lengthy or too short. So I will give examples of what too lengthy means and what too short means, and what should be the actual size of your research title. So all the research titles and example that I'm going to use in my entire video will be mainly from education discipline. So it may vary from discipline to discipline. You can frame your title according to your own discipline. So here I have given one example of too lengthy title. So it is to study the type of opinions that the parents hold towards the vocational education at the elementary level in the schools located in the areas under the district XYZ and the name of the state. So here you can see that the title has been too lengthy. Therefore, you have to be wise enough to not include unnecessary words and make it into too lengthy. Therefore, you also need to develop your vocabulary skill so that you can develop your title without diluting its main content. So the next example is the example of very short title, that is to study the opinions of parents towards vocational education. So this research title is too short and it does not indicate the broad objective of your research. So the next is medium type of research title. So this is the acceptable one, that is to study the opinions of parents towards vocational education at the elementary level in XYZ district of a particular state. So this is one example of a medium size research title which is acceptable. So what your research title should have. So this is the thing that your research title should cover. That is the broad objective of your research and your population where you're going to study and your area or location where you're going to study your research and the variables that you're going to study. So these things should be included in the research title. So here you can see in the medium research title example that I have given, here it includes the broad objective. So the broad objective is to study the opinions of the parents towards vocational education. And here the population has also been mentioned here, that is the parents whose children are studying in elementary level. So here the area and location has also been mentioned, that is the XYZ district of a particular state. And the variables has also been mentioned, that is the opinions of the parents. So these are the example of a acceptable research title. So whenever you frame a research title, make sure that you include all these things within your research title. So moving on to the next, the preliminary section should also consist of the contents and the abbreviation that you are going to use. So I suppose that you already know how to write your contents. So the content should be written in logical order according to the page. And next is abbreviation use. So you also have to mention in the preliminary section about the expanded form of your abbreviation. So this is some examples of abbreviation. So in case you are using an abbreviation, you will also have to write down the expanded form of that abbreviation. So this is all about the preliminary section. Now moving on to the next, that is the main body, that is the part B. It will first include the introductory part of your research. That means within that you will have to include the brief background of the topic under study. And within that, you will also have to mention the concept of the topic, that is the concept of the variables that you are going to use. So in this case, if the research title is to study the opinions of the parents towards vocational education in elementary school, so here you have to mention what do you mean by education as a whole and vocational education in particular. And also you will have to introduce the variables here, that is the opinions of the parents. And after that, you will also have to write down the statement of the problem. So within the statement of the problem, you will just have to elaborate your research topic, that is the research title. So next is literature review. So literature review is nothing but identifying and analyzing the existing research on that particular area and also synthesizing them as a story with the help of arguments in order to make a composite and meaningful whole. So how you are going to make that as a meaningful whole? So you can do that by listing out the arguments that has been highlighted in the previous research and also by comparing the findings of the previous research based on their similarities and their differences. So when you do literature review, you may find that some of the research findings are contradictory to each other and some are incongruent to each other. So that means the similarities. So this is how you are going to synthesize the literature review based on the similarities and differences. So you can do this by various methods such as through chronological method or thematic method. So in case of chronological method, the researcher used to write down the previous research in the form of a chronology. So it can be in the chronology of the research conducted according to the date. Or next, in the case of thematic literature review, the researcher can group the research findings into some themes such as the method that they have used or the areas that they have explored. So likewise, you can make a theme of the research and do your literature review in a thematic approach. So after doing all the literature review, don't limit yourself within that. Next, you will also have to write down the critical appraisal of the literature. It means within the critical appraisal, what you have to do is you have to highlight the research gaps of the previous research and also connect your research topic with the literature gap and show them that your topic is going to fill that literature gap that has been there in the previous research. So this is what known as critical appraisal of the literature. So how you are going to identify the literature gap? So there are some methods of how you can identify the literature gap. So one of them are by studying the delimitation of the previous research. So I will discuss the meaning of delimitation in my upcoming slides. And besides the delimitation of the research, some researchers also highlight some suggestions for future research. So these are the areas which shows that there is a gap in the research. So you can explore such kind of things and frame your topic according to that in order to fill that gap. So the next is, what are the types of research gaps? So let us know what are the types of research gaps. So Miles in 2017 has highlighted 7 types of literature gap, and these are the evidence gap, the knowledge gap, the practical knowledge gap, the methodological gap, the empirical gap, the theoretical gap, and the population gap. So now let us check them out one by one. So the first one is the evidence gap. So the evidence gap occurs when a new research findings contradicts widely accepted conclusions of the previous research. And in this, the gaps involves the contradictions of the findings of the previous research. And the next is knowledge gap. So knowledge gap is nothing but the lack of existing knowledge or information in that particular area. And the next is practical knowledge gap. Practical knowledge gap arises when the actual behavior is very different from the findings of the previous research. So in this case, when practical knowledge gap exists, there is a need to uncover the reasons for its existence. And the next is methodological gap. So methodological gap deals with the differences that occurs due to the influences of certain methodology on a research result. It means that if a researcher finds out that a particular phenomenon or topic has been studied with the help of a particular kind of method, then there is also a need to study that particular phenomenon by using some another method, because that will yield to findings that may be different from the findings that has been gathered from the previous method that has been used. And the next is empirical gap. So the empirical gap is a type of research gaps that deals with the gaps in the previous research and deals with the research findings or propositions or hypotheses that needs to be tested and empirically verified in different population or in different scenarios. And the next is theoretical gap. So theoretical gap deals with the gaps in the theory with the previous research. And in this case, the researcher examines if one of the various theories is superior in terms of the gap in the previous research. That is, which theory is more comprehensive or superior in order to understand a particular phenomenon. So in this case, if the researcher finds out that the previous theories does not help him or her to understand a new phenomenon, then in that case there is a theoretical gap. That means there is a need to develop a new theory in order to understand a new phenomenon. And the next is the population gap. So the population gap means when the research does not adequately represent a particular community or population. So it may include the type of gender, the type of race or ethnicity, and the type of age group. So if, for example, a particular topic or research has been carried out in a particular race or ethnicity or age group, then there is a need to study that particular topic with respect to other community or ethnicity as well, in order to understand the phenomenon in a broader way as of how it differs from community to community. So this is called as a population gap. So this was all about the 7 types of research gap that has been given by Miles in 2017. So moving on to the next, why we need to do literature review on the first place. So now let us know why we need to do literature review. So the literature review serves various functions. So these are some of the functions that it serves. So it serves as a theoretical foundation or background for the new researcher in a particular area. And next, it helps in identifying the relationships among the variables and how it changes over time. And the next is it helps in identifying the trends of development in an area under the study. After that, it also helps in drawing out or generalization about a research area. And next, it also helps to identify the pioneers or the prominent figures who have worked in that particular area for the first time, or those who have given huge contribution to that area. And the next is it also helps in building foundations for the new methodologies. Next, it also helps to identify where our research problem or the topic lies in that particular area under the study. Next, it also helps in developing and framing the research questions. After that, it also helps the new researcher to engage with the academic community in that particular area. And next, it also provides an overall context to establish the feasibility of the research. It means that with the help of the literature review, the researcher who is new to that area will come to know that what type of methods has been used in previous research and is it feasible within the duration of the research or not. So they will get an idea of that. Next is it helps in identifying the research gaps. Next is it also helps the new researcher to show and demonstrate the existence of the research gap which one proposes to fill by justifying it through pertinent arguments. So these are some of the functions that literature review serves. So guys, this is the end of the part 1. If you want to know more about the contents, then you will have to check out the next part. That is the part 2 of the research proposal video. So stay tuned for the next part.